Michelle with Michelle Loves Books. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to go over everything that I read in November. I read a total of 11 books. 6 of those were audiobooks and 5 of those were physical books. There was 1 graphic novel, 6 fantasy books, 3 thrillers, and 2 contemporary. And there were 1,986 pages read, and I only count pages for physical books. I'm actually considering changing that for the following year. So let's go ahead and start out with the physical books. The first one I'm going to start out with is a graphic novel called Skyward. I read the second volume. I read the first volume last month, I believe, and this has become a new favorite graphic novel for me. First of all, the art is just excellent. If you're not familiar with Skyward, it's about the Earth after the Earth has lost its gravity. So our main character was just a baby when G-Day happened, which is the day that Earth lost gravity, and so her whole life, all she's known is how to get around without gravity. It's just so much fun. It's so unique. And I was just really shocked at what happened in the next segment of the series. So in the second installment, they've been exploring a little bit more of the political issues going on behind the primary conflict. Our main character has a life-changing event happen to her, as well as another layer of this world opens up. The next book is A Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson, and this follows Elizabeth, who is an orphan, and like all orphans in this world, they are handed over to the wardens of the magical libraries. Elizabeth was probably the youngest child ever given over to a library, and she grew up crawling around the stacks, which kind of gives her a special knack. Now that she's working as an apprentice, she really has a special knack for the job. Elizabeth grows up with the idea that sorcerers are really scary and they should be feared. The libraries are intended to hold the grimoires to protect the knowledge in the books and also protect the public from the books. If a book gets damaged, something crazy kind of happens. It's imperative that they keep these books protected because if the books get damaged or they get angry, they turn into malefacts. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. They basically go haywire. One crazy evening, one of the books gets out. Elizabeth saves the city and winds up thrust into this adventure with a sorcerer who she should fear and caught up into a complex plot of power, destruction, and mayhem. It's so magical, it's so whimsical, and there's all these like little things that I personally found were just so much fun. As you can tell, I loved this book. The library was really magical. I felt the writing flowed really nicely and really captivated me. The political climate was complex and the corruption was really interesting. There are also demons with a complex and unique magical system as well. I would say if I had any complaints, it would probably be the characters. As wonderful as the world was, the characters were a little flat. The romance aspect was likely the worst part of the book, but everything else was so fantastic that it's unlike me to overlook the character flaws. Plus, I just have a special affinity for books that have really cool libraries. The next book was A House of Salt and Sorrow by Aaron A. Craig. This is a historical supernatural fiction that follows a family who lives in a large manor house by the sea, and their customs are quite a bit different than mainlanders. The entire town actually feels that their family is cursed and they shy away from them because since their mother has died, 4 of the girls have died. Because of their unique customs, they have a year-long mourning period, and because of all their loss, their period of mourning just seems to never end. The girls are getting older and they need to attend social events so that they can have a chance to meet gentlemen. They wind up finding a secret magical door that takes them to parties across the country to dance the night away. But when Annalie meets a stranger, ghostly visions start plaguing her and strange and unusual things start to happen. Well, as if secret doorways to magical places isn't strange enough. This book was excellent. This is definitely a very atmospheric book. It was really chilling and ominous, obviously sad with all of their loss. And as the story picks up, it starts transforming into this whole other thing. It was really exciting, but creepy as well. I guess you could consider this a magical realism as well. I just love the setting by the sea as well. I don't know what it is about that setting that I'm just really drawn to. And especially in this book, because of where they live, they have these traditions that are really unique, I think. I really get serious David Bowie Labyrinth vibes and the Wicked Deep vibes from this book. The next two books are City of Ashes and City of Glass by Cassandra Clare. This is book number 2 and book number 3 in the Mortal Instruments series, which are going to be included in a future vlog project that I'm working on. This video will probably be uploaded before that one goes up. So if you want a book talk on those books, it will be in that vlog. I'm sure everyone mostly knows what these books are about, but here's the plot anyways. The race of Nephilim, who are shadow hunters or demon hunters, live in an institute in New York City. Clary has been hidden away from the world and she had no idea what she was until her mother got captured. And then she's thrust into this world of demons, downworlders, and shadow hunters, and learning an entirely new side about her mother that she never knew, and figuring out who she really is while falling in love. She's also trying to find and save her mother from a sleeping beauty like sleep. These are actually rereads for me, and years ago when I first read them, I fell in love with I fell in love with City of Bones years ago when I first read it, and so I was really excited to read City of Ashes and City of Glass, but at the time, I really didn't care for them that much. But this second go around, I'm really loving these books, and I cannot wait to continue the series. So if you want to check out that blog, it does have spoilers, but I will leave it linked below whenever, hopefully if I remember. All right, so moving on to audiobooks. So I listened to Storm and Fury by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the first in a new series called the Harbinger series. This follows a girl named Trinity, who can see and communicate with ghosts, and she helps them move on. There's a lot more to her special gift that's imperative that she keeps secret. Only like 2 people know about it in her life, but if the secret gets out, it could put a target on her back. She lives in a place that's guarded by gargoyles, which was really cool, and also, I forgot to mention, there's also like magical gargoyles, Sorcery of Thorns, so that was kind of funny. This place houses wardens, who are basically like demon hunters. And Trinity is assigned or bonded to a protector who is her best friend, but when she meets Zane, she feels a really strong pull towards him. Her friend and protector does not trust him and warns her to stay away from him. But there's something about him she doesn't see why he doesn't trust her, because he's been nothing but kind to her. Plus, of course, he's hot and he's mysterious. Now, I have Armentrout's books in the past. I've read all of her Lux series, including her new series with The Darkest Star, which goes with the Lux series. And then I also read Cursed, which is not part of this Lux series, it's separate. But in both scenarios, I loved the stories, I loved her writing. So I actually felt pretty disappointed in this book. The premise of the story is pretty good, but I felt like the characters were just not the same as I've experienced in her other books. They don't really have the same quirks that she has included in her characters before. So that's what I would say the difference is in my expectations for this book. It's very reminiscent of the Mortal Instruments series, which is not a problem. It's just that I felt like it was a little bland. I would say there's just a couple of big things in this book that were really interesting, but that's about it for me. Apparently, I still gave this book 4 stars. Maybe it was like a 3.5 that I rated on Goodreads, but I think I rated it a little too soon after reading it, because now a month later, it's not really a book that's sticking with me. So I think I'll be bringing my rating down to about a 2.5 to 3 stars. The next one I listened to was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I listened to this on audiobook. This book is on everyone's radar right now. I think I ultimately decided to pick it up because it's a Goodreads Choice Awards nominee for, I think, Best Fiction. But it doesn't really matter. I'm also really excited that I could get on the bandwagon and see what everyone's raving about. This is about a rock band in the 70s who teams up with Daisy Jones. It's about their rise to fame and the music business, the show business, the drama that unfolds while they're recording an album and going on tour. There's also substance abuse, and there's a lot of women empowerment, which is wonderful too. The story is told from multiple perspectives, so I kind of already knew I wasn't going to love this book as much as everyone else did. In general, it's just not in my usual type of genre that I read. And I also wasn't that impressed with Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, her other book, that was really hyped up last year. Now, before you hate on me, don't get me wrong. Her writing is really good. She's definitely a talented writer, and her storytelling ability is wonderful too. For me, it's just personal taste and subject matter. I guess I just have decided that I'm really just not impressed about stories of famous people or musicians especially. And that's not just for books, it's also movies. My husband likes to watch a lot of those movies with, oh, what was that recent one that just came out with, I'll have to look it up and I'll put it up here, but there was a new movie that just came out. I mean, it was a good movie and everything, but I'm just not impressed with musicians. I just feel like it's the same old story. I think also whenever there's characters who are addicted to substances, I don't know if it's just too close to home for me, not for me personally, but just, you know, people in my life, just kind of what I grew up with. I don't know if it's because of that. I just kind of feel like, are there any musicians who are not just like on drugs and alcohol? The next one I listened to was The Final Girls by Riley Sager. This has been recommended by a few books. This is a thriller about 3 women who are the sole survivors of massacres. Due to the high-profile crimes, the press is very interested in them, calling them the Final Girls. They're each coping with the trauma and trying to move on when one of the final girls winds up dead. This pushes Quincy to meet Sam, and then the story kind of picks up from there. This was a really good book, and at first I wasn't really sure why I was having a hard time getting into it. I think I just finally figured out why. I guess I was under the impression that the final girls all knew each other and it was the same massacre that they had all experienced together, but it turns out they don't actually know each other. They know about each other because of the press. And I think that that's where I was kind of confused. It could have also been just life, or maybe it was just kind of slow to start. And again, this isn't the usual genre that I pick up, but I have been really wanting to read more thrillers, and this has been an excellent month for that because I read 3. But I'm really glad that I picked this book up because although it took a while to get into for me, once like the big reveal happened and everything, like the twist, I was shocked. And it was so messed up. But yeah, I ended up really loving this book. The next one is Frankly in Love by David Yoon. I think what immediately drew me to this book a while ago is the cover. And I actually didn't really know what I was getting into. It's a contemporary romance with wonderful diversity and LGBTQ rep. There's Frankly, a Korean American boy who is our main character, and he's best friends with Frank Lee, an African American boy. They're both in high school and they are both excellent students and they're preparing for their SAT exams. They're looking forward to going off to college soon. Neither of them has dated much, and frankly, our main character has a bigger struggle than most other American kids with dating because of his Korean parents and their close-knit Korean community and the beliefs that go along with that. And more unpleasantly, their racist ideals. Frankly has finally met a girl that he really likes and he really wants to date. But he's embarrassed by how his family will react and they won't approve because she's a white girl. So he fake dates another Korean girl that he grew up with in their little Korean circle so that they can both date whoever they like and stay out as late as they want and their parents won't care. This book started out really strong for me. It was really funny, it was witty, it was honest, and it touched a lot on a lot of the racial issues that I thought were really interesting. I also really love the family dynamic and how it evolves from the beginning and how frankly his sister and his parents all come together. They all learn something from this book. It's so heartwarming and so sweet. It did slow down a little bit in the witty department from the beginning of the book. It did become quite predictable. But overall, I really loved this book and I have to really appreciate, like I said, how honest it was. The next one is The Winters by Lisa Gabriel. This one I actually received as an ARC a long time ago and I just have not gotten around to it. So I feel really accomplished in that department that I got an ARC read. This is another thriller and I really enjoyed this book. In the shortest explanation of this story, it's like a retelling of the story Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. However, I liked this story a lot better. Obviously, it's a lot more modern. The Winters is about a young woman who works for this boat rental place and she's been paying down her debt to the owner. It's not the greatest situation for her, but she doesn't have a whole lot of options open to her because without this opportunity, she really wouldn't have much. When one high-profile client, Max Winters, requests that she be his tour guide, it quickly spirals into a passionate romance. The older, widowed man whisks her away to his estate with his disturbed teenage daughter, and the late Mrs. Rebecca Winters is haunting her conscience. This book was really well paced, it was twisted and suspenseful and surprising. I really loved this book and I thought the way that it ended was excellent. I would highly recommend this book. And the last one is The Mother-in-Law by Sally Hepworth. This one was a real treat. It is like a mystery thriller, and it's about this complex relationship between Lucy and her mother-in-law Diana. It's told from each of the women's perspectives, bouncing back and forth from the past in Lucy and Diana's perspectives to the present in Lucy's perspective, where Diana has been murdered, and following the funeral and the investigation. The structure of this novel may sound really crazy, but it is so well done. I know there's a lot of people who really don't like the dual perspectives and find it difficult, and especially when you're listening to it on audiobooks, sometimes it makes it even more difficult to get into it. As a reader, I really enjoy dual perspectives because I like to see what all the characters are up to, not only in the perspective of the narrator. I think it offers a lot of dimension, and this is definitely the case in this book. I really hesitate to say anything more about this book because I think it's one of those ones that's best going into it blind. And it's really so difficult to not tell you what I loved so much about this book. There are two major points that I am just dying to spill the beans on. And one of them is a very controversial topic that you don't get to until the end of the book. And so go read this book. This is one of those ones that I feel is going to stay with me for a really long time. And it's really hard hitting. So that wraps up all the books that I read in November. There's only 1 month left. And I don't think I'm going to make my Goodreads goal. I would have to read like 75 books. I set it really high this year, but last year I read like 150 books. So this year I set it to 200 books and I'm at like 107 right now. Like this month I read like 11 books. So I'll get closer, but there's no way. Thanks for watching. Bye.